Hey everyone, welcome back to the Barbell Medicine YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum. This is training vlog number 29. We are back from the break, and now we're going to answer some of your questions, review some of your form check videos that you've submitted, and take a look into our own training as of late. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video so you can find out how to submit your own video, your own questions to be answered right here on this vlog. Let's get it started. The first question is from AJ Maripet. He asks, during your January 2nd, 2019 Q&A video with Jessica Griffith, you mentioned if you're not losing weight, either you're not in a calorie deficit or you have some strange metabolic process that we've not yet described where you're just gaining weight. By definition, even if you have a metabolic disorder of some sort, making it difficult to lose weight over time, aren't you still in a calorie surplus? Apologies if I've misunderstood you. So I think I was just being dramatic there, trying to reiterate the point that if somebody is not losing weight, then they are by definition not in a caloric deficit. And that goes for all disease processes that we've described this far and, presumably in the future. That being said, there are some people on social media, Instagram, YouTube, etc., who are claiming to have lost weight by increasing their calories. This happens all the time. Oh, you're not eating enough to lose weight. People say that. Or, hey, I switched to the insert whatever popular diet is out there now. I switched to that diet and I'm eating 500 more calories per day on average than I used to, and I've lost weight. How is this possible? Well, let's get into the nuance here. So basically, these folks are claiming that the dietary change they just made somehow has increased their total daily energy expenditure. So effectively, they need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. You cannot lose weight otherwise. Just put it there. That is the rule. If you're not in a calorie deficit, you're not losing weight, you don't pass go, you don't collect $200. So if someone's saying, hey, I've lost weight on this diet, even though I haven't reduced my calories, what they're telling you is that by changing to this diet, I have increased my total daily energy expenditure just by changing my diet. Now, there are three major components of the total daily energy expenditure. One is your resting metabolic rate, two is the thermic effect of food, and three is physical activity. And we're going to go through each one of those things. So your resting metabolic rate is about 50 to 70% of that quantity is determined by your weight and lean body mass. So the remaining portion is genetically influenced, environmentally influenced, and is also influenced by certain medical conditions. But if you want to simplify this, your resting metabolic rate, the biggest determinant of that number is your lean body mass and then some genetic influences. So if anything that causes you to lose weight or lose lean body mass would in general reduce your resting metabolic rate. So the thermic effect of food is the second component in the total daily energy expenditure. And this is widely considered to represent about 10% of your total daily energy expenditure. So if somebody's burning 3,000 calories total per day, this would be worth about 300 calories. This is increased by increasing dietary protein, increasing dietary fiber, and then also if you eat more, so overfeeding, that tends to increase your thermic effect of food just by the process of having more food. Similarly, if you're under eating, that will decrease the thermic effect of food because you have less food. Now, interestingly, all the studies on overfeeding and underfeeding, these acute studies, show a weight change that basically occurs when people go either overfeeding or underfeeding. So if they're overfeeding, they gain weight. If they're underfeeding, they lose weight. So yes, overfeeding or underfeeding can affect your thermic effect of food, but usually it's only by about 15% per this review by Lofeld et al. I'll link in the description below. And then two, there would be a weight change associated with eating less or eating more. So it's not like you're eating the same and then suddenly your thermic effect of food is, way through the roof and you lose weight. That's not how this works. And then the last component of total daily energy expenditure is physical activity. And there are two broad categories here. One is formal or structured or volitional physical activity. So you're going to the gym, you're going for a walk, you're going for a bike ride, etc. And then the second part of this is non-exercise physical activity. So this would be like fidgets, twitches, not involuntary movements, not being sedentary, etc. So what happens secondary to a dietary change to this non-exercise physical activity? It probably doesn't influence that quantity at all. So effectively, if someone was trying to say, hey, I changed my diet to whatever is popular, and I increased my calories and I lost weight, could they blame this on non-exercise physical activity or NEPA? The answer to that is no. Also, this doesn't actually change when people lose weight through exercise alone either. There was a study, which I'll link below as well, called the Midwestern Exercise Trial, or MET2. So effectively, people were exercised 5 days per week, and over half of them lost 5% of their body weight or more, so they were deemed responders, and then about 46% did not achieve that 5% minimum sort of weight loss, and they were deemed non-responders. And so the researchers were trying to figure out, well, was this due to a change in this non-exercise physical activity? Like, they were all getting the same amount of exercise in. How come these people didn't lose weight? Was it because they were just moving around less in their spare time? And the answer to that was no. So you guys should read that study. It's a pretty fascinating read. All right, so let's wrap this up and finally address the claims of a person who says they lost weight while increasing their calories on a new diet. Could changing to a new diet and eating more calories increase their resting metabolic rate? This is highly unlikely, especially if they did not increase their lean body mass, which would be unlikely to happen while they're losing weight. So effectively, someone's not packing on a ton of muscle while losing weight. Seems unlikely. Could this process be due to an increased thermic effect of food, which is normally accepted to be about 10%? That is probably unlikely too, because again, we would not tend to see this huge change in thermic effect of food to adapt to the new diet that would ultimately produce weight loss without a calorie deficit. And could this be due to increased physical activity? No, we don't see changes in NEPA or that non-exercise physical activity. They may have increased their own physical activity and subsequently that produced their weight loss, but it wasn't due to the dietary change. Basically, someone's trying to tell you, hey, I'm eating more calories than I previously was, and I lost weight. That does not comport. So there's a couple issues here, and I think we should use a hypothetical example here and use some tools that I like to use in my practice. So the NIH has a body weight planner. I actually linked this in the description below as well. This is a handy sort of web-based app where people can plug in their weight and measurements and all this other stuff and like how much weight they want to lose, and it tells them on average how many calories they're going to have to eat for the next period of time. So I plugged this in for like a 150-pound female who wants to lose 5 pounds in a month. I think that was the process or the amount of time on the person I'm thinking of. So on average, they'd have to eat about 489 calories less per day for 28 days in order to produce that weight loss. If they were eating, as they claimed, about 500 calories more, they would gain close to 5 pounds in a month span. So why was this person wrong? So they might have been measuring, weighing themselves in dissimilar conditions. So weighing at night one time, weighing in the morning on another time, or weighing on different scales that are not calibrated in any way. That's possible. They also could be counting calories incorrectly. We're really bad at this. In fact, some of the studies looking at how accurate humans are at not only estimating calories, but also like plugging in calories when they're eyeballing stuff is very, very bad. Using other tools such as how many bites you've taken of what kind of food can be better, but there's still a really big error bar here. So it could be that they're not estimating their calorie intake appropriately. So, and there are multiple levels of bias within that. So you might forget things. The last study I read suggested that people who are using like macro counting apps or other sort of food journals tend to omit like 9% of all the things that they eat. Anyway, so that could be in there too, in addition to like measuring their weight wrong, like we said. And, or just misreporting what happened. So the most likely scenario here for someone who says that they've increased their dietary intake calorie-wise and has lost weight is that they've actually now entered into a sustained caloric deficit. So maybe it's improved compliance. They may have made other changes simultaneously, like increasing physical activity or something else. But ultimately, there are no biological free lunches. If someone claims vehemently that, hey, I'm eating more calories now and I have lost weight, that's a red flag. I don't know if you should be getting information from them. There's so many problems with that. I would just move on. Don't try to get in the fight on the internet. Just move on. Speaking of moving on, we're going to go to the second question. Okay, so next question is from Pierre. He asks, I'm a 20-year-old sports student in France. I've been diagnosed this year with a 16 millimeter leg length discrepancy via x-rays. I've always had aches and pain in my low back and knees since playing sports as a kid, tennis, rugby, cycling. I've started lifting 3 years ago, and I tweaked my left SI joint, sacroiliac joint, 3 times doing squats and deadlifts, and have had pain consistently in my day-to-day life since then, with sciatica down my left leg, mid-back, and neck pain all on the left side. I've also started to develop an IT band, so iliotibial band related syndrome in my right knee, and a permanent discomfort in the lower right side of my stomach, wondering about a hernia. I went to a podiatrist who prescribed me inserts, heel lifts for my left foot for walking, and it relieved some pain, but not all. I wonder if I should wear those for my lifting sessions or continue to train without. What do you guys do when one of your clients have those issues, and what would you recommend for me to do in that situation? Well, Pierre, your English is much better than my French. I think that I can adequately discern what you're trying to ask me here, but there's a lot. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. It seems like the main premise of your question is that you're under the assumption that your leg length discrepancy is the cause of your pain in your lower back and knee, and maybe some other related musculoskeletal problems. So let's talk about leg length discrepancy here. So first off, there are 2 types of leg length discrepancies that have been described. One is anatomical, and the second is functional. An anatomical leg length discrepancy describes structural differences in the femur or the tibia's length. They can either occur from birth, so naturally occurring, so effectively some issue with development, or they can be acquired at some point via a fracture, bone disease, joint replacement, something like that. This second leg length discrepancy, or functional leg length discrepancy, isn't as clear as the anatomical one. It's frequently discussed in the literature, but lacks supportive research around it as far as it actually existing as a thing. Typically, the discussion about functional leg length discrepancies are centered around these pseudoscientific ideas about pelvic torsion, tight versus loose muscles, subluxations, etc. If I suspected that somebody had a leg length discrepancy, I would diagnose it as a leg length discrepancy, and then I would move down my algorithm as far as, okay, now what to do about it. So diagnosing leg length discrepancies is actually pretty difficult to do as well, using things like tape measures or palpation, so feeling, or using blocks to level the pelvis and sort of measuring a leg length discrepancy like that. All of those things are not accurate enough to actually diagnose somebody with a leg length discrepancy. So if that's the way that you were measured, if you're watching this, you may or may not have a leg length discrepancy. You can't measure it like that accurately enough to actually diagnose somebody with a leg length discrepancy. You can use other imaging techniques like x-rays. So this guy was diagnosed with an x-ray showing that he has a leg length discrepancy, and that seems to be the most reliable, although, as we'll find out, this is probably not important. These are super common in the population. Like 90% of the population walking around is going to have a leg length discrepancy. On average, the average difference is 5.2 millimeters. This is put forth by a study by Knutson et al. I'll link that in the description below. So anyway, 90% of the population walking around with the leg length discrepancy. Obviously, 90% of people don't have this chronic low back pain or sciatica or knee pain or whatever else. So what's the deal? Does a leg length discrepancy of 5.2 millimeters, which is the average, or anywhere around there, does that actually matter? Does it correlate with pain or dysfunction? So basically, when looking at all of the data on this, what has been found is that until you get to a leg length discrepancy of about 20 millimeters to 30 millimeters, we don't see a correlation with pain or dysfunction. And I'll read this from this Knutson paper. In summary, childhood onset anatomic leg length inequality appears to have little clinical significance up to 20 millimeters. Several authors agree. Most recently was Kakshuma et al., who stated, therefore, although conflicts in the literature exist, 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters of leg length discrepancy can be characterized as a minimum leg length discrepancy which should be treated in the clinical practice. This estimation of clinical significance dovetails nicely with the findings on the effects of leg length discrepancy, particularly pelvic torsion. passive structural changes, pelvic torsion, mild lumbar scoliosis, facet angulation, changes in muscle length seem capable of compensating for anatomic leg length discrepancy up to about 20 millimeters. Past the 20 millimeters point, passive structural changes give way to active muscular compensatory measures. Now, that's a mouthful, but the takeaway from that is that 20 to 30 millimeters seems to be this sort of inflection point where now you have enough leg length discrepancy that it might actually be meaningful. That being said, 16 millimeters is what you were diagnosed with, and I don't think that that actually is clinically relevant given what we know about leg length discrepancies. It's not very well correlated with low back pain anyway, especially until it gets over that 20, 30 millimeter sort of cut point. This next paper by Nurbach et al. Says, it appears that muscle endurance and weakness are associated with low back pain and that structural factors such as size of the lumbar lordosis, pelvic tilt, leg length discrepancy, and the length of the abdominal, hamstring, and iliopsoas muscles are not associated with the occurrence of low back pain. So again, the TLDR of this is until the leg length discrepancy gets to about 20 to 30 millimeters, I'm not sure if I would be looking at that as my smoking gun for nonspecific low back pain or other musculoskeletal issues. As far as the shoe inserts or the heel lifts go, Campbell et al. Actually performed a meta-analysis on heel lifts for leg length discrepancy. I'll link that paper as well in the description below. And so effectively they looked at heel lifts for leg length discrepancy in adults with painful musculoskeletal conditions. The problem with this data set is that the included studies had no controls, meaning that if you came in and you had a leg length discrepancy, it wasn't clear how these were diagnosed or what cutoff that they were using necessarily, but people presumably entered the clinic and were diagnosed or had a diagnosis previously of leg length discrepancy. They got a heel lift. And there was no control though. So it's not like there was they were comparing them to people who didn't get a heel lift, or that they were comparing people who thought they got a heel lift versus people who got the heel lift, this randomized double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. So none of that actually happened. That being said, heel lift's pretty low risk. They're not very expensive, and it's not invasive, and people seem to get decent results with them. There are 9 guidelines out there on when you should use heel lifts, and they actually review them in this meta-analysis as well. So I'll link that. You can read it. The idea and my personal take on this is, if you feel like you benefit from a heel lift, keep on, do it. Because again, low risk, and most of the people who actually got the heel lift seem to feel better. But again, that's not matched to a control. There was no placebo, component sort of corrected for. So, I think if you have a heel lift right now and you seem to like it, go for it. But again, 16 millimeters really isn't that big to me for a leg length discrepancy. I probably wouldn't have done anything about it. I would not have sent you for an x-ray to measure it in the first place, but now that you have it and you know about it, might be nocebo in you there. You had 2 other questions in here. So you were talking about IT band related syndrome pain. So I would question the diagnosis of that. It's really difficult to diagnose, treat, and sort of manage. I think that you would 100% benefit, especially given the total picture of, the pain issues that you're facing and how that relates to training. I think that you would benefit from a consult with one of our guys, Derek Miles or Dr. Michael Ray. Both of them are excellent pain rehab specialists. Michael Ray is a chiropractor. Derek Miles is a sports med physical therapist. They are both excellent, and they're getting great results with the people that they work with. So I would highly recommend them. You can email us at the email in the description below, or in the interim, you can check out this article on IT band syndrome from Pain Science. It's pretty good, sort of starts to unpack all the complexities with even diagnosing this, and then subsequently kind of gets into where you would how you would manage it. So I would recommend that. And then finally, as far as the discomfort in your lower right abdomen, that definitely requires clinical evaluation for diagnosis. I can't tell you if you have a hernia from here. If you have consistent right lower quadrant pain, it could be in any number of things depending on your clinical picture. I would highly recommend you see your doctor on that one. I would 100% recommend contacting Dr. Ray or Dr. Miles to work on getting you training pain-free. And I would read the article on the IT band syndrome. So hopefully that helped talk about leg length discrepancies, when it's a thing, 20 to 30 millimeters, and maybe what to do about it. Heel lift, maybe. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this next question is from Jamil Papatia. He asks, if you recall, I'm the Vancouverite lifter who ruptured a biceps tendon while deadlifting almost a year ago now. I finally saw your video about my biceps tear. Let me just say this. He wrote bicep twice. And, you know, I always wanted there to be like a singular bicep, you know, bicep, not biceps, but it's always biceps. And so when I say it, it's just like triceps. You can't say I'm doing tricep. No, it's always triceps and it's always biceps. So when you're writing it, even if you mean it's like only one side, it's still biceps. I should probably edit this out later, but yeah, let's roll with it. So anyway, I finally saw your video about my biceps tear injury. Oh, cool. I'll link that below too. Firstly, thank you so much for all the beneficial information in that video. Much appreciated. I'm just getting back to my pre-surgery strength now, finally, and it feels really good, albeit slightly different around the elbow, around your biceps. All right, moving on. I have great dad jokes. I'm hearing a lot about smaller lifters using a 2.5 or 3-inch belt, especially for deadlifting, but I wanted to ask your opinion. Perhaps you might make a video about this. Maybe. But I did want to ask you if you think a smaller belt is appropriate. For the record, I'm 5'9", 185. Sometimes a 4-inch belt does dig into my ribs, but so far I just live with it. The belt is 10 millimeter, by the way, as I do not see the need for a 13 millimeter belt for smaller, less meaty lifters. Does that make me meaty? Anyway, I would love to get your thoughts, suggestions, and experiences, Jordan. Okay, so the TLDR of this is, I think this is mostly a personal preference kind of deal. All right, so I prefer a 4-inch wide belt, 13 millimeters thick. That's what I prefer. I'm 5'10.5", 200 pounds. That's what I've used my entire training career, and I prefer that. I have tried a 3-inch belt. I did not like it. The idea that you can set your back better or worse based on belt size has not been substantiated. I think that is well enough supported to actually make that a recommendation. I do think this is just personal preference. So if you're used to pulling in a 4-inch, 10 millimeter belt, and there's some issues with it that you're not really liking, I would first try to adjust the belt down, so that I like to deadlift, for instance, with the front of the belt much lower than where I squat, whereas it's more kind of parallel to the ground when I squat or bench compared to when I deadlift. It's definitely tilted down in the front a little bit more. You can also try playing around with the tightness, loosening it up one, or making it a little tighter, something like that, to see if you like it better. If you have somebody with a 3-inch belt in the gym, try it, but I wouldn't suspect that you just switching to a 3-inch belt is going to make this much better. That all being said, so Leah actually used to pull in a 3-inch belt. All right, training 3-inch belt, that's all she had. And when we were getting ready for one of her Worlds meets, we had her get one of the IPF approved belts because there was some issue if her belt was going to be approved or not. So anyway, she got a 4-inch, 13 millimeter belt. She had never pulled in one before or trained in one before. And she got this belt, and that's all she uses. That's what she prefers. I think she just pulled... Yeah, I mean, she's closing in on 180. It's going to happen. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, she prefers the thicker belt, and she's, smaller than you are by a lot. And so I don't know. I don't think I could recommend that somebody use one type of belt based on their body weight, height, or, sex. So I would try a 3-inch belt if you can have access to it after I tried pushing the front of your belt down a little lower and see if that helps you out. If that doesn't help you out, maybe try a 3-inch belt, but I have no reason to believe that it's going to make it better. It may make it feel worse, but in a different way. Okay, so we're back with form checks. This first one is going to be Chris McEwen. I think this is like 290. So I can already tell your stance is wide. I'm going to guess that you're going to be a little too vertical. Yeah, I mean, the depth is good. You're a little vertical, and it looks like you're lifting your head out of the bottom. I probably wouldn't do that. So I would actually narrow your stance, bend over a little bit more. Yeah, stance looks wide because the knees are caving. If you could have kept your knees out, I probably wouldn't have said anything. All right, this is Anthony Nunez. This is 365. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I would just stand up all the way at the top. So you're not standing up all the way at the top. Stand up. Yeah, that last one you scooted forward. You stand all the way up the top. So don't move the bar. Stand all the way up the top. This is Baraki. We literally just hop off a plane. That's 215, 463. He's doing some pause squats. So let's talk about his pause squats. So this is 180, 396. That first pause was probably a little short. You notice he fixes that. So notice at the bottom, he's not sinking down. He's perfectly still. That's the idea. So you're trying to stay down there 1,000, 2,000, abolish the stretch reflex as much as you can in this type of scenario. That looks pretty good. All right, this is me, 352. I think I actually failed this. This is close grip bench. It's in Melbourne. Yeah, and now watch this last rep. I think it's way out in front of me. Yeah, so it's way out in front of me, and now I can't bring the bar back, and I'm just gonna fail. Yeah, thank God for Tom being there. Thank you for saving me. So the point is, you just run that risk of the bar staying out in front of you on a close grip bench compared to a regular bench press because you're touching so much lower anyway. So it's touching much lower, and so then it has to go back further to get in the groove, to get over the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint so that you can complete the rep. And so that last rep, I didn't quite get there. It's the risk you run with the close grip bench. All right, now on incline bench. So this is my 15-degree incline bench. This was this 140, 308. I actually really have been liking this as a assistance lift for my bench press. For press, I like a higher incline, but for bench press, this is more similar. So 140 for 5 looks pretty good there. This is actually a PR, so this is 145, 321, 319 or something like that, whatever it is. Yeah, this is very similar though. So now that you're at an angle, you can, if you leave the bar in front of you, yeah, that was a PR. I gotta clap for myself. If you leave the bar in front of you, you're dead. So always gotta push the bar back. What is this, 572? I forgot about that shirt. That's funny. Yeah, well. So I'm watching the plates here. One thing to watch on nearly all the lifts, especially squat and deadlifts, is watch the plates. Make sure that they don't roll. That kind of tells you what you need to know about bar path. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Stays up my legs. Good extension. I'm cool with that. This is sumo deadlift. Oh, the heresy. So this is 220, 484. These first 2 reps. This is rep 3. I'm not standing up as much as I want to. I think Tom yells at me. Yeah, just finish your reps, Jordan. Stand up. That was okay. Yeah, it's still light. You can see it kind of move off my legs at the beginning. So if it were me, I would try to, well, it is me. If I were actually viewing this, I would coach myself to stand up straight every rep. I would yell at me, and I would squeeze up on the bar a little harder prior to lifting the weight off the floor so that it didn't roll away from my shins. Okay, so this is Baraki. This is 250 kilos, so 551. Pause deadlift. It's pretty good. Nice. Now he's going to go up. And now this is 606. 275 kilos for pause deadlift. Just look at where his shoulders are relative to the bar. They stay out in front of the bar. Yeah, I mean, a little thoracic flexion, but not an issue. So that was a mismatch of training videos that we just kind of collected. I don't want to have to dig too deep and like delay this for another week or two, but hey, I need your help. I need you guys to submit your own form checks to us at media@barbellmedicine.com. Now, check this out. I want you to turn your phone this way. Don't do it this way. Do it this way. Please and thank you. Also, hey, I'm pumped about you guys hitting heavy singles. Get those PRs. Woo. But I want to see multiple rep sets. So I was combing through our emails. I got a lot of singles in there, and I don't mean the cool kind. Hook it up with the landscape videos. Send them to us, media@barbellmedicine.com. Send us your presses. Send us your benches. You can also send us squats and deadlifts like everybody else. But hey, upper body needs love too. So anyway, thank you for tuning in to this training vlog. We'll be up with another one next week. Make sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all the latest content. Hit like if you dug the video. Share it with a friend. We'll see you guys next time. Later. How do they have so many of these magazines? Like, you figure you buy one magazine about how to decorate your home on the inside and you're good.
Do people buy Vogue?
I don't know. They got a stack of them. Vogue Living.
This place isn't even decorated.
That's what I'm saying. There's no decorations. Like, you bought the magazines. You bought the magazines to decorate.
Well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. I just thought that it'd be classy, you know, and it's like rows. And I just... Hi, I'm Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum. You may remember me from other such YouTube videos as Metabolism, How to Measure Your Waist. Who is that character from The Simpsons?
Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such movies as Cry-Yuma and Here Comes the Coast Guard. Lead paint, delicious but deadly. And Here Comes the Metric System.
Not a Simpsons fan.
What? Do you watch cartoons? Did you ever watch cartoons?
A little bit of Family Guy and a little bit of South Park, I guess.
But no Simpsons.
No Simpsons.
What about like Futurama?
Nope.
Like all of our dude followers are now just like, oh no.